It's been 140 years since Korea and the United Kingdom formed diplomatic ties. To mark this anniversary, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol made an official visit to the UK in November, becoming the first head of state to do so since King Charles' coronation. This allowed the longtime allies to achieve an unprecedented level of cooperation extending into not only the economic, but also the geopolitical fields. The UK is one of only a few countries that have a diplomatic mission in both South and North Korea. And our Globalist today, UK's ambassador to Korea, Colin Crooks, is the only diplomat in Seoul to have separately led missions in both South and North Korea.
I'm Colin Crooks. I'm the British ambassador to North Korea. I'm here in Kim Il-sung Square in the center of the capital, Pyongyang.
He is here today to share his experiences on both sides of the Korean peninsula and his views on the future of UK-South Korean relations.
그전에 90년대에 여기서 일했기 때문에
네.
한국에 제2의 고장으로 갑니다.
Ambassador Crooks, welcome to the Globalists.
Thank you for the invitation. It's an honor to be here.
It has been quite some time since you last joined us at Ari랑TV, here about 10 years ago?
Oh, a little bit longer.
Oh,
the last time I can remember being here was in 1997, when I came on an economic chat show of some sort, just before the IMF crisis.
Mr. Colin Crooks, Secretary for Economic Affairs from British Embassy, Seoul.
So that means that you were here on your first assignment on the Korean Peninsula. But since then, you have the distinction of having served separately, both in South Korea then North Korea heading the North Korean mission, and then coming to South Korea to head the South Korean mission. That's the first time any ambassador has been able to do that.
So I think I'm the first British ambassador to do that. I think there may have been some other countries that have had that, but certainly I'm the only serving diplomat in Seoul who has also served as ambassador in North Korea.
So among the current ambassadors in Korea,
that's,
you have that distinction.
Certainly true.
What was being an ambassador in North Korea like?
Well, it was a fascinating experience, very different from being in South Korea. You know, in South Korea, we have so many dimensions to our work. South Korea is a very free, quite a messy country in some ways, but many, many different things to do. North Korea is a very different experience. It was fascinating. And I think to be a diplomat in North Korea, you have to have a curious frame of mind. And so we used to explore as much as we could in Pyongyang, going out to other cities, other provinces. Within Pyongyang itself, I think I visited about 80 different restaurants, lots of different shops. You have to just be curious and to try and explore and find new experiences. But just being there was a really interesting thing to do.
So you were in North Korea, sort of living in North Korea for about a year and a half. I mean, the term was longer, but actually living in North Korea was about a year and a half.
That's right. I should have spent 3 years there, but Corona descended on us, and North Korea sealed the borders. They sealed the borders with me inside.
Oh, wow.
We tried to keep the embassy running, but when we couldn't change our people, we couldn't get supplies or even letters. In due course, we had to decide that we couldn't run an embassy under those circumstances, and so we had to close temporarily, but we still have not been able to reopen. We do intend to reopen the embassy, but as of this day, I remain the last British citizen to set foot in North Korea.
You know, your experiences about North Korea, you know, like today in South Korea, this is the coldest day of the year so far. It's like minus 10, 12 degrees centigrade right now. On a day like today, you know, when you think about if you had been in North Korea or your days in North Korea, are there memories, are there things that you think about?
Well, so many memories, and I'm just thinking on a cold day like today in North Korea, I would probably have tried to get out in the car, driven around Pyongyang. If it had been snowing, I was always trying to get that elusive shot of a snowman on Kim Il-sung Square. Just seeing what.
Are there snowmen on Kim Il-sung Square?
I didn't get a photograph of one, but I did see a photograph. I wished I'd taken the photograph of people making snowmen on Kim Il-sung Square on a snowy, cold day, a little bit like today.
And you talked about the restaurants. What was your favorite meal you've had in one of those restaurants?
Well, I used to like, what they do best, of course, is Korean cuisine. I used to enjoy the bulgogi and some of the special North Korean style dishes like rokdujijim. So not nokdujjeon, but rokdujijim.
Rokdujijim, which is sort of the pancake
mung bean
pancake. Yes. Which they call in a different way. Does that taste different in North Korea?
It's just done in a special way with a bit of pork fat in the middle, and used to really enjoy that one. But many other dishes as well that we used to have.
So with your unique experience of being in South Korea, then in North Korea, and now back in South Korea, does it give you a different perspective on North Korea? And vice versa, having been in North Korea, does it give you a different perspective on South Korea?
I think undoubtedly having served on both sides of the DMZ enriches my experience of Korea. I think the most interesting thing is what I have done, no Korean, or very, very few Koreans have done, because most South Koreans have not had the experience of living in North Korea and vice versa. And so I do find that there's endless fascination and endless curiosity, like the questions you've been asking me, what is life like in North Korea? I have to say I didn't get so many questions in North Korea about what life was like in South Korea. Perhaps people are a little bit more intimidated about asking that sort of question. I think the interesting thing is just being able to compare and I think one of the things that always strikes me living here in Seoul, as I said, Seoul, it's a messy place, it's a vibrant place, there's a lot going on. Pyongyang is so different. Pyongyang is very quiet, can be tense, can be isolated. And I do think that you're coming to Seoul, having lived in Pyongyang, life in Seoul is one of the world's greatest advertisements for the benefits of capitalism and freedom, because of the vibrancy that you see here that you simply don't see in the north.
And based on your unique experience having served in North Korea, these days when we see all these provocations coming from North Korea, what is behind all of these provocations coming from the north?
Well, I think it's sad to see these provocations continuing, because there may be a perception up there that this is a way to guarantee North Korea's security, but in fact it doesn't. Continuing to defy international law in the way that we've seen is a recipe for isolation. It's a recipe for hardship for the North Korean government and its people. And we'd like to see people realize that actually denuclearization and embracing international law is actually the real route to security and prosperity for the North Korean people.
And there's a lot of talk about the North Korean insecurity, as you sort of alluded to, being the cause for a lot of that. When you were there, did you sort of feel that as well?
You can certainly feel that there's tension. You see it from the propaganda, from the posters, from the slogans that you see in the streets, and also talking to the officials that we would talk to. You'd always get the line that it's all they said it's a hostile policy in the rest of the world. In actual fact, I think the rest of the world is only too ready to embrace a North Korea that returns to the fold, that rejoins the international community. But it's a very difficult narrative to break down.
Yeah, especially when you're very secluded from the rest of the world.
Yes. Yeah. But you did get the sense from talking to some of the officials that they wanted a good relationship with the rest of the world, and that when détente takes hold, it's a process that they would welcome. Sadly, their policies have not yet allowed a real process to take hold.
Yeah. One of the things, especially with the Ukraine war happening, a so-called alliance between Russia, China, and North Korea that people are talking about. From a European perspective, because the Ukraine war is really shaken up geopolitics in Europe a lot. What do you make of this kind of move or alliance, as people call it?
I'm not sure I'd hesitate to characterize it in quite those terms. I think if you look at Russia, Russia has placed itself outside international law through its outrageous, unprovoked invasion of Ukraine and the daily atrocities we continue to see there. And this sort of bromance we see between Russia and North Korea in recent months, to me it's a sign of desperation from Russia, that they know that they're losing the argument, they're not achieving their objectives, they're desperate for any form of international support and recognition, and the only place they can get that is North Korea. I think China's interests here are actually quite different, and I would hesitate to lump China in the same way. Certainly the UK, as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, we hope that all members of the Security Council, especially permanent members like Russia and China, would live up to their responsibilities. We've all passed these resolutions that make clear that North Korea's provocations are illegal, and we'd like to see all members of the Security Council live up to the responsibilities to enforce these resolutions. One of the reasons why we're so happy to see the Republic of Korea joining the Security Council in 2024. I think it's a great opportunity to bring home to the international community the reality of what's happening on the Korean Peninsula.
Yes, there's a lot of diplomatic efforts to be done in 2024. But let's go back to your relationship with South Korea. You started in the early part of 1990, as we said, but people remember, and we talk about 1999 is when you were at the very last end of your stay in Korea, and you got the chance to accompany the late Queen Elizabeth to her visit to Andong, Ha회마을, which for Koreans is like, this is the memory they have of the late Queen Elizabeth, and it's a very good one. You were there. Tell us what it was like.
Well, it was an incredible privilege at the end of my first posting as a junior diplomat in Korea to have the chance to organise a state visit by Her Majesty, the Queen. And Koreans always remember Andong. I think that's what the Queen herself always remembered from the trip, the visit to Halfway Village. It was her birthday. They prepared a birthday table, taking her shoes off as she went into one of the houses there in Andong. And when she came to Korea in 1999, everyone wanted to show her the modern Korea, new universities, new schools, new factories, new cities. And I think she wanted to see something of the traditional Korea, and that's what we found in Andong, a chance to see how Korea was also capable of preserving its past and its history and its traditions. And it was a very colourful day, one that I certainly will always remember, but I think that the Queen herself greatly enjoyed that.
Yes. And I hear that the people of Andong were especially expressing their condolences when her passing. I mean, they came to you, if I hear correctly.
They certainly did. We in the embassy were overwhelmed last year when the Queen passed away by the expressions of sympathy and condolence that came from right across Korean society. And yes, the mayor of Andong, the elders of Halfway Village were among the first to come to my residence to express their condolences. But after that as well, I went down to Andong after that because another place the Queen visited there was the temple of Pongjongsa. And Pongjongsa temple held a sashib kuje for the Queen.
Really?
So 7 weeks after her passing, they carried out a ceremony, and I had this immense privilege of going and attending that ceremony. I was hugely touched when the Sunnim offered prayers that the Queen, when she is reincarnated, should be reincarnated and born again in Korea, which I thought was an incredibly touching and kind sentiment.
Yeah, there is that connection, I think, she made when she was here, especially at Andong. It was a very touching moment, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
yes.
it was a great experience, but one of the highlights of my life, let alone my career.
영국에 오신 것을 환영합니다. while the wind keeps blowing, my feet stand upon a rock.
To me, my fair friend, the United Kingdom, you never can be all.
위하여.
Now coming to 2023. November, South Korean President Yoon made an official visit to the UK, and I hear it went really well. I mean, you were there. What was it like?
I was indeed. I mean, I'd say first of all that it felt a little bit like coming full circle in my career, having played a part in the Queen's state visit to Korea, to do one in the opposite direction. Most diplomats don't get the chance to do even one state visit in their career. To do one in both directions to the same country as it was a unique privilege. But no, it went extremely well. I had the immense pleasure of being part of the visit, being present at all of the ceremonial events, the welcoming ceremony on Horse Guards Parade. I managed to take a horse carriage after the President on the way from Horse Guards Parade to the Palace. I was there at a lunch with the King, attended the state banquet at Buckingham Palace. So a really glittering occasion. Yes. Something that I think caught the imagination of the media both in Korea and in the UK.
The video visual effects were magnificent in terms of that visit. But what was the feeling like? I mean, you were there. The ceremonies were wonderful to look at. But in terms of the rapport between the two leaders, in terms of where the UK is at the moment versus where South Korea is, I mean, if you characterize that meeting, how would you characterize it?
Well, there were several meetings, and I wasn't present for all of them because they shared a horse carriage. They were sitting next to each other at the banquet, having private conversations. But the impression that I had was that the rapport was there, that there's a genuine affection on both sides, both between countries, but also between the individuals. And I think our royal family, I saw something of them on this visit, and they have to do this all the time, and they're pretty good at putting guests at their ease. And President Yoon and First Lady Kim Gon-hee seemed to relish the experience as well.
Yeah. And the outcome, we're talking about the Downing Street Accord. Tell us about the Downing Street. What is the significance of that, and what difference in the relationship will that make?
Well, it took a lot of preparation on both sides. A lot of hard work went into the Downing Street Accord, but really it represents a great step change in UK-Korea relations to bring them to their highest level ever. The UK and Korea are now global strategic partners. And as our Prime Minister said in the summit between them, which I also attended, Korea is now in the first rank of the UK's global partners. And this, I think, represents the reality of the way in which Korea has developed over recent years, but also the investment that the UK has been putting into our relationship with countries in the Indo-Pacific region. This is a relationship that has come of age.
When you talk about the global strategic partnership, what does that mean? I mean, in terms of, are we identifying strategic areas of relationships? What kind of difference in the relationship in the future will that make?
Well, first of all, I'd hone in on the word global. We don't see Korea just as a regional player. We see Korea as a global player with global interests and global responsibilities, much like the UK. And on the strategic side, this is a multidimensional, full-spectrum partnership. If you look at the Downing Street Accord, we have closer relations now in defence and security, on things like cyber, trade and investment, science and technology, energy and net zero, international development, a whole range of different areas where we have agreed concrete outcomes, concrete partnerships, and dialogues and cooperation projects, which will now form, I think, the substance of our relationship over the years to come. Well, one obvious thing is our free trade agreement. Korea was the first country in the Indo-Pacific region to agree a bilateral FTA with the UK after Brexit. But we've agreed from the outset that we would renegotiate that, upgrade that, and that's going to start now this year. So that's one concrete example, and huge potential there in digital trade, for example. AI, emerging technology, something that President Yoon is intensely interested in, but also our Prime Minister Sunak. and Korea has agreed to co-host with the UK the next edition of the AI Safety Summit coming up probably this spring. We'll be working very closely together on that. Cyber is another area. We're both threatened by cyber attacks from malign players. We've agreed we will work together on countering that. So really right across the spectrum, we're seeing potential and determination to work together.
I think these are some of the global issues that both countries are extremely interested, invested in, and probably could work very well together in. But we're talking also, I mean, you talked about the late Queen and now President Yoon, this kind of people-to-people link, the feeling is also quite important. And I hear that on this visit, businessmen, cultural celebrities played a big role in maybe harnessing and maybe strengthening that type of relationship. What happened?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm fond of saying that people-to-people relations are the beating heart of our relationship, and we're blessed with a very robust set of relationships between our peoples. Business, you mentioned, we had a very successful business forum. We had most of Korea's leading business people at a business forum in the UK. But on softer areas of power as well. I think one of the things that everyone noticed from President Yoon's state visit was the presence of Blackpink.
Especially inspiring to see Korea's younger generation, Jenny, Jisoo, Lisa and Rose,
one of our favorite K-pop bands, who we've had the pleasure of working quite closely with on climate change. They've been very powerful advocates for the fight against climate change, and we were able to recognize that during the visit. They attended the state banquet, and also His Majesty the King presented them with MBE medals, and the significance of the MBE is it's the same medal that the Queen gave the Beatles in 1965. So quite a mark of respect and gratitude to Blackpink for the work that they did.
To follow on the heels of, on the path of Beatles is quite a feat. What do you think the overall interest on Korean culture is among the British population right now?
Well, the K-wave has washed up on the shores of the UK as it has in many other places, and there was a very successful exhibition on the K-wave at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London last year. I learned to my surprise that the fastest growing foreign language in British universities these days is Korean. I learned Korean 30 years ago, and I can assure you it was not fashionable back then. But Korea's become fashionable. But, it works in the other direction as well. And everyone in Korea knows the English Premier League, raced, of course, by people like Son Heung-min and Hwang Hee-chan. There's also a British manager for the Korean women's national football team. That's a link as well. And also British culture. This year we had very successful exhibitions about David Hockney, Thomas Heatherwick, the architect and designer. We had a great exhibition at the National Museum of Korea with some masterpieces from the British National Gallery. So I think that it's a wave that washes in both directions. So there's a K wave in the UK. I'd like to think we have a UK wave here in Korea.
A UK wave. As you just pointed out, it's great to have waves on both sides, especially in the culture area. Now, you are our last globalist in 2023. So maybe something to look forward to in 2024?
The last few months, because of the state visit, has been very focused on the capital, a lot of work to do in Seoul. And I'd like to reconnect with the provinces and other cities of Korea, do a bit more traveling around the country next year. I think there's a lot of work to do with the women's agenda. We're struck by some of the things that we need to achieve there. I think women are still quite underrepresented in Korean society. There's still certainly issues in UK society, and I'd like to see how we can share experience in that area. And then the green agenda. We talked a little bit about energy, but we think there's a lot more to do together on green energy, on green finance, on supporting that all-important net zero agenda. So lots and lots to do next year.
Well, I hope you get to do a lot of that, and I hope you do it successfully, and you can come back at the end of 2024 and let us know how you did.
That's a date. Thank you very much. I look forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. 감사합니다.
감사합니다. And Ambassador Crooks was our last globalist for the year 2023. Thank you to all the glorious globalists who have come on our show to tell us their wonderful journeys. Our globalists this week, our globalist today. Our globalist today is, the car itself is not
just for just moving one point to
정말 좋은 운수권.
That it's best eaten with rice. Being experimental.
Audience simulation in such a way that
기술의 진보 이런 것도 알려주지만
We promise in 2024 we have many, many more globalists to show you. Happy holidays to you wherever you are, and may the new year bring you love and peace. Sun Ji-ae out.